I was just thinking about this. Somebody had called and asked me about taking an engine out of a Sportster and putting one in. They needed to take out and bring me the engine for something. And reminded me a long time ago, probably 90, man, I don't remember, probably 94, 95, 96, somewhere in there. I had a customer, had several bikes, but he had an 83 XR1000. I think it was 83. It was a white one. We had several white ones around. And they were all 83s. There was like 3 local guys that had white XR1000s. So I had done one prior to his. Other guy had a lot of money, so whatever I threw at him, he's like, yeah, let's do it. So basically, he had talked to somebody and asked me about putting these some cams in it and new valve springs and checking valve guides and valve springs and converting it over to and putting pistons in it and converting getting rid of the 36 millimeter carbs and going with 38 millimeter Mikunis and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Dual plugged heads too. So did all this work to it. And I think when we dynoed it the first time, it made like, you expect an XR1000 to make more power than it did. It made barely 60. I mean, like almost exactly 60 at the rear wheel. That's kind of piddly. So did everything to it, gave it back to him, and it was after he broke it in, ran it on the dyno, and it was 85, 86 at the rear wheel. That's decent. Decent increase, 25, 26 horsepower. So this other guy wants to do his. He also had an 83, but he's not bringing the whole bike in. He's just bringing the engine. So talked to him, and he's just going to bring me the engine. Okay, bring it in. Order all the stuff for it. Brings the engine in. Tear it down, go through everything. Put pistons in it. Didn't need to put rods in it, but I did make sure they were round on the big ends. Split the flywheels, measured the rods. Had to straighten them up slightly, just a little bit on the sun and hone. Basically went through the whole bottom end, setting it up. Went through the top end, new springs, put the cams in there, carburetors, everything. Put it on the bench, put oil in it, prime the entire system. Buttoned it up so it wasn't going to drip oil anywhere. And he's good to go. So he comes to pick the engine up on a Friday afternoon after work, Friday night. Gets it, and he asked me how to put it in there. I said, man, you just, take some garden hose and slit it open and slide it over the frame on each side at the front and on the left side and on the right side. Just plain old thin garden hose, just to protect the frame. Okay. He's like, isn't that thing heavy? I'm like, yeah, it's fairly heavy, but you just bend down, wrap your arms around it, wear a long sleeve shirt or a coat, wrap your arms around it, lift it up, go in from the right side, kind of cock it this way so the primary side goes in first, and then just move it into place, and you're good to go. That's it. And then start bolting everything up. You went over, hooking oil lines up, all that. And then he was going to hook it up the carburetors. And I told him, man, if you're not sure about the carburetors, after you get everything in there and get it running, just bring it back up there and I'll sync the carbs for you. So you can at least ride it some. And I'll probably take it out and ride it and jet it a little bit. Monday morning, and he's like, yeah, something wrong with the engine there. I was like, damn, something's wrong with the engine. I'm thinking he put it in there and it had a noise or, locked up or who knows what, So he said, I'll bring it in after I get off work. I got it sitting in the back seat of my truck. Like, okay. So strange because it's sitting in the back seat of his truck. So he never actually put it in the bike. Kind of sketchy, right? So he brings the engine in, then we're unloading it, and it's dripping oil out of the damn bottom of the cases there. I was like, shit. It brought it in, put it up on the teardown table, on the engine stand, and it's steady just dripping. And I was like, what the hell happened there? And I was expecting him to say, oh, you must have screwed up when you resealed the cases when you put it back together. At least he was honest. He said, no, he said, I did exactly what you told me not to do. He wanted to use an engine stand or engine hoist to put the engine there. And I told him, don't do that. Repeatedly, don't do that. No matter how easy it is, just don't do it. So what he did was he had it on the engine hoist, jacked all the way up as high as it would go, and he's pushing it across the damn garage, and BAM! Hits the ground. Busted, Sportster has a little mini sump out under there that's hollow. So, of course, that's what it hit on, the mini sump. And busted it in 3 or 4 places. I mean, good size crack. I had a chunk broken off of it out of the center. You could see it. He's like, can you fix it? I said, yeah, we're going to have to because you can't get them damn cases no more. Like, okay, well, tear it apart. Go ahead and fix it. Let me know how much it's going to be after he done spent all this money on it already. So took it apart, cleaned everything meticulously, heated up the cases, re-welded them, remachined them down in the Bridgeport there, fit everything back up. And I told him, I was like, man, well, before I could even say it, he said, you know what, I'm just going to bring you the frame and let you do the whole thing. Probably a good idea. So put it all together, put it in there. Yeah, I got it set up where the lift's right here, and here's a counter right here. The engine's sitting right here. So all you do is grab a hold of the engine like that, turn around, and set it in the frame there. Very, very simple, easy process. So put it all back together, took it out and rode it, jetted the carbs a little bit, synchronized the carbs, set the timing, all that crap. Rode it probably, I rode it myself probably 150 miles. Because I asked him, I was like, man, you mind if I ride it? Just breaking it in? He's like, nah, go ahead. So put like 150 miles on it, changed the oil, checked all the motor mounts, checked the head bolts, all that. Basically checked everything over again. Fully inspected the bike from front to back because it was pretty pristine, but he's one of those guys that likes to fiddle with stuff himself, and sometimes they don't do a really good job at simple tasks that get often overlooked. So I went through the bike, the entire thing, called him, told him it's ready, and I actually undercharged him for what I just did for welding the cases. I really should have charged him more, but I felt kind of sorry for him, even though it was his fault doing what I told him not to do. But he was happy in the end. The bike ran really good. Made good power. It was the same range as the other one. Made 86, 87 horsepower, something like that. So a lot more than it did stock. Pleased as punch. It's one of them. All 3 of them guys. Well, 2 of those guys, they didn't ride those bikes very much. Him and one other guy. The other guy had like 1,200 miles on his, and he had bought it new. And 10 years later, or actually more than 10 years later, he still only had 1,500 miles on it. So he would take it out and ride it. I'd say, Alan, how often do you ride that thing? So I get it out about once a year, put a couple of miles on it. Okay. And when I say a couple, I mean a couple. Because you could check work orders from when it was in last year and you got something done. And it was nothing, everything major. It was like changing oil, state inspection, lube the throttle cables, lube the clutch cable, adjust anything that needs adjusting, that kind of stuff. And he put 2 miles on it. Now, one year he brought it in and pulled the work order up, and over a year it had 0 miles. And this guy was about the same way. He rode it more than Alan did, but he still wasn't more like a showpiece, collector's item really. So just be careful when you're putting the engine in or taking it out. You don't need to drop anything from what I judged, what he was saying how high it is. It was over 5 foot high off the ground when it fell or it dropped. And I don't know if he had it trying to sling it up underneath with a sling, trying to carry it like that and then pushing it across the shop, or what happened if he actually had it bolted to something or trying to use a hook to carry it and then it hit a bump in the floor and kind of bounced off and didn't bounce when it hit the ground. It smashed the hell out of them cases. But that's about it. That's just something I remembered happening. No harm, no foul. It's just a mistake somebody made. It's not a big deal. Like I told him, it's not a big deal. Shit happens. You shouldn't feel bad about it. A lot of people wouldn't even attempt it. Now you know. Costly mistake, but now you know. And for all that work, the second time, I want to say I only charged them. Well, I charged them a gasket kit, and for the machine work and for the welding. The welding process on an engine case like that, you have to thoroughly clean it. I mean, like hot water clean it, the jet wash, and then heat it up to outgas the aluminum, and clean it again, and clean jet wash again, and then outgas it again. And then heat it up before you start welding so you're not warping the shit out of stuff. And use a template. I had made a piece of steel, or had a piece of steel, like either 5/8 or 3/4 inch thick, that had basically stenciled out the bolt pattern on a engine case, and then tapped and drilled each hole. So when you're welding this thing, you could just bolt the engine down, stick the whole thing in the oven, and heat it up to temperature slowly, and then pull it out and weld it. Then stick it back in the oven after it's welded with the heat cranked up, and then turn the heat down slowly about every hour. Drop it like 100 degrees every hour or so. And then, let it slowly come down to temperature. And then turn it off and let it sit overnight before you even mess with it the next day. You come in the next day and it'd still be good and warm. And then you can unbolt it and do the machine, do any machine work you need to, resurface it to the cases actually match up perfectly. And then you need to check, whenever you weld something like that, you need to check run out on cases between the left case and the right on the main bearings. In this case, you line hone it. Make sure there's no misalignment between the cases there, even though it's on dowels. You heat something up like that, you could still warp one way or the other. So you put it in there, run a line hone through it, or line lap. Make sure that the sprocket bearings are parallel with the pinion bearings. But really, that's about it. That's all I wanted to say. Just another story, remembering stories of stuff that's been done, 35 years ago or more, 30 years ago. Yeah, probably 30 years ago. And you have to think that guy probably still has a bike running on out here. Hope everybody has a good week.